Hello, fourth graders. Welcome back to your next math lesson in comparing and ordering fractions. Today we're going to practice what we used on, well, it was supposed to be Wednesday, but it wasn't for everybody. What we used the other day, we'll say that, on using fraction number lines to help us compare fractions, but this time focusing on benchmark fractions. Today I'm going to try to use a whiteboard so that we don't have the sound of my pen that was way too loud last time. And I would like you to take out your math books to page 233. Switch this over. Okay, we are set up. All right, so today we're going to talk about benchmark fractions. Oh, I can already tell that this is going to sound better. Benchmarks are easy to understand fractions. Oh, having troubles. Let's just do this because I want you to be able to see it. For example, 0 halves. We know that that's 0. A half, we can relate things to that pretty easily. And 2 halves, which is 1. So we can put these on a number line. 0, half, and 1. Using these fractions, we can tell if different fractions are closer to 0, half, or 1. So ultimately, we are rounding fractions in order to figure out what they're closer to. So if I looked at a fraction such as 3/8, okay, I know that in 3/8, I don't want to draw a circle. If I were to have half of this shaded in, it would be 4/8. So I can tell you that I'm only 1/8 away from half of this whole being shaded in. So 3/8, we can write it out, is about, and we remember that this wiggly lined equal sign means about 1/2. Okay, so if I were to take a fraction such as 2/12, put that up a little bit, it's kind of funky, I know. 2/12, and we were to draw that out, we know that in order to be at a half, 6 of them would have to be shaded in. I only have 2 shaded in, which means I'm actually closer to 0. So I can use that to create the statement that 2/12 is less than 3/8, because I know that this is closer to 0, whereas this is closer to a half, and a half is more than 0. So benchmark fractions are actually very friendly and easy to use. Okay. So in your math books, I would like you to go with me to page 233, and you can see a number line just like the one that I just drew. Okay, I'm not liking how fuzzy that is today. I'm not sure what's causing that. But we're able to see that on this first one, we're deciding if our answers are closer to 0 or closer to 1, not closer to a half. But for this one, they're only wanting us to use 1 and 0. So 1/4, we know is going to come before 1/2. So 1/4 would fall right here. So that would be closer to 0. 3/4, we would split into our 4 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4. Shade in 3 of them. Be here, and that would be closer to 1. Now 7/8, we know, because we did our unit fraction, is only 1/8 of a way from being 8/8. So this would be closer to 1. Okay, we can apply the same practice down here on these problems, and I'm going to leave 17 and 18 for you to do on your own, and just look really quickly at 19. Again, we already talked about 3/8. 3/8 we know is very close to 4/8, which is a half. So 3/8 is almost 4/8. So we can say that that's close to a half. That would be our benchmark. Whereas 1/6 is 2/6 of the way away from a half, so it's not close. It's closer to 0. So we would be able to say, knowing that, because we know 3/8 is closer to a half, that 3/8 is greater than 1/6, which is closer to 0. Okay, I'm gonna have you guys finish up that page on your own. Really, it's only 3 problems. Respond to our good friend Puzzle Penguin, who is still just puzzled. I don't know what we're gonna do about him. We like to joke about him in class, don't we? Okay, then I wanna look, my battery's dying, but I have enough time. I'm sure that recorded in my video for you. I wanna look real quick at page 234, and I'm not going to pull up my book right now, so I want to make sure you're following along in your book while I'm talking. This one is looking at ingredients, and the ingredients in this recipe start at, looks like, down to 0, and none of the ingredients require more than 2 cups. So we can make our number line right here. This would be 1.5, this would be 1.5. And now really what we're trying to do is determine where on this number line these values would fall. So I'm going to scoot this up and pull my math book underline, because I think this number line is actually going to be very helpful in solving these problems, okay? So if I'm looking at this page and I'm looking at wheat flour is right here at 1 5/8. Now, so I know I'm going to be up here in my 1 holes. 5/8 is more than a half because 4/8 is a half, but it's not quite 2 holes. So is it closer to 1.5 or closer to 2 holes? I hope by now that you're realizing that it is closer to 1.5, because 1 5/8, if I subtracted 1/8, I would land at 1 4/8, which is that 1.5. However, to get to 2 holes, I would have to add 3/8 to get to 2 holes. So obviously this 1/8 shows us that we're closer to 1.5 than these 3/8 show us that we are to 2 holes. So for wheat flour, we would answer 1 5/8. Oh, I'm so sorry, I messed that up. 1.5. Now, cornstarch, on the other hand, is here at 3/8. So we know that it's on our number line between 0 and 1/2. And so what we could do, we could even break our number line, if it helped us, into 8s. See how I broke it into 4ths and now I'm breaking into 8s? 3/8 would be right here, and we can very visually see that that is much closer to 1/2 than it is to 0. So cornstarch, we would say, is closest to 1/2. Finally, down here, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to tell me which is more. So there is 1 1/8 cup sugar. Water, there is 2/6. And I sure hope you guys can tell me right away that there is more sugar than water, because 1 hole is greater than 0 holes. Okay. So quick lesson today, 4th graders. Looking quickly at the idea of benchmark fractions. It's very similar to rounding like we've been doing all year. And I hope that that helps you work on page 233 and 234. And I will talk to you soon.